This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Next on the 5 o'clock report.
The Supreme Court will get involved.
We're in the business of complying with federal court decisions.
Doctors who prescribe these abortion pills will not have to put their name on the prescription any longer.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
Good afternoon and welcome to the broadcast. I'm Family Life News anchor Sarah Harnish. Bringing jobs home. President Trump turns his attention to Louisiana today. He just got a $5.8 billion steel manufacturing agreement from the North Korean automaker Hyundai.
In particular, Hyundai will be building a brand new steel plant in Louisiana, which will produce more than 2.7 million metric tons of steel a year, creating more than 1,400 jobs for American steelworkers.
It's part of a push to manufacture things in the United States. Doubling down on deportations, a 3-judge appeals panel heard arguments today on whether or not the Trump administration can continue deporting illegal immigrants under the Alien Enemies Act. We're expecting a ruling soon. Attorney General Pam Bondi says she'll appeal all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court if need be for the right to kick out of this country dangerous gang members who are here illegally.
The Supreme Court will get involved. This is an out-of-control judge.
Bondi referring to Judge James Boasberg, who ruled the administration cannot use a 2-century-old law to deport Venezuelan nationals.
A federal judge trying to control our entire foreign policy, and he cannot do it.
Borders are Tom Homan.
We're going to continue to arrest public safety threats and national security threats. We're going to continue to deport them from the United States.
Earlier this month, President Trump flew hundreds of alleged gang members to a supermax prison in El Salvador. The U.S. Supreme Court is set to make a decision on gerrymandering. The case has to do with the number of black congressional districts in Louisiana. This is the NAACP.
The state had exercised its authority to protect favored incumbents and unite preferred communities of interest.
Benjamin Agua is the state's Solicitor General.
We're in the business of complying with federal court decisions. And when they told us that we needed to draw a second majority black district, that's what we did.
The court is deciding if Louisiana did enough with its newest map. A busy day for the High Court. The White House is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to pause a lower court ruling that required 6 federal agencies to reinstate fired probationary workers. Legal analyst Lori Levinson.
Going to the Supreme Court is asking for the highest court to decide this on an emergency basis. And it's unclear whether they will do that or whether they will take this case, have the full briefing, and then decide how far executive powers go.
Tension is building in the Kansas state capitol, where Satanists plan to hold a so-called Black Mass in the capitol on Friday. A group calling itself the Satanic Grotto plans to hold the gathering outside the Capitol building. It's drawn counter-protests by area Christian groups. Chuck Weber with the Kansas Catholic Conference tells KSNT it comes down to the fundamental difference between good and evil.
Whatever Christian influence, Judeo-Christian influence has here in the state capitol and our laws is a good thing. I think Satan worship and satanic thinking is a bad thing. And so I'm ready to have that fight and that debate any day of the week.
Satanic Grotto says their ceremony will include the destruction of a crucifix. Firefighters in North and South Carolina are battling thousands of acres of wildfires. Some of the areas affected were hit by Hurricane Helene, and the debris is still there. Bobby Arledge is Polk County, North Carolina's emergency director.
This fire now, thrown on top of that, it's been a nightmare for those people who live in that area. All the debris and the blowdowns and stuff from the hurricane is doing nothing but fueling these fires.
And it's a different type of March Madness. The average adult basketball game has less than 1 hour of playing time. So what happened at a charity game in Georgia was unusual, to say the least. The fundraiser by an Atlanta-based ministry called Men Opposing Sex Trafficking, or MOST, played the most continuous basketball ever, logging over 121 straight hours on the court at Landmark Christian School to raise money to fight sex trafficking. What's it like to play basketball for more than 5 days straight? This player can tell you.
The most challenging part for me has been playing and then having to rest, which obviously you need the rest, and then getting back up from the rest because you're extremely sore and your muscles are cold.
But ministry founder Bruce Steele says all that temporary pain was more than worth the effort.
We'll leave here today, but that issue will still be in society, so we're enthused that we get to be a part of addressing that at least at some level.
They raised more than $300,000 to fight human trafficking. Still to come on the 5 o'clock report, protecting abortion doctors. Transgender lawsuit dropped in Western New York and free doorbell cameras in Pennsylvania. Those stories after weather with Kevin Williams.
The call for tonight, a good deal of cloud cover, a couple of scattered evening rain showers, followed by some snow flurries. Low temperatures, upper 20s and 30s. Tomorrow and Wednesday, considerable cloudiness, brisk and chilly with a few rain and snow showers, except a mix of sun and clouds and mainly precipitation-free in central and eastern Pennsylvania. High temperatures, 40s tomorrow, and mostly mid-30s to mid-40s on Wednesday.
Thank you, Kevin. Checking the stories making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. New York Governor Kathy Hochul has signed legislation to strengthen the state's so-called SHIELD law. It protects the anonymity of abortion doctors. Jason McGuire with New York Families.
Essentially, under this new law, what the governor is saying is that doctors who prescribe these abortion pills, especially out of state, will not have to put their name on the prescription any longer. It will be only the practice of the doctor, not the doctor's specific name.
The state of Louisiana recently sued New York over its Abortion Provider Protection Act. This after a woman suffered serious health complications after using abortifacients from the Empire State.
Bear in mind that in that case, the New York doctor never even spoke to the woman who took the pills. That is not safety. That is not concern. We're not caring for women in this. We're caring about political agendas.
Many in the pro-life community fear New York's SHIELD law, in an effort to protect abortion doctors, will only encourage medical malpractice. A lawsuit's been dropped in Western New York over alleged misgendering of a trans student at school. Family Life's Mark Webster reports.
Yeah, the East Aurora School District suspended the 8th grader for 5 days, in part for declaring that there are only 2 genders. When the district threatened to extend the suspension, his mother sued Superintendent Brian Russ and middle school principal Matthew Brown, calling the initial suspension an unconstitutional restriction on speech. However, her attorney tells the Buffalo News the suit has now been dropped in exchange for the district dropping plans to lengthen the suspension. He says the suit's chief aim of halting that additional suspension was achieved, and her son has returned to school. Mark Webster, Family Life News.
In Corning, New York, dozens of demonstrators picketed outside the district office of Southern Tier Congressman Nick Langworthy. The protesters showed up on Market Street to demand protections for Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. Langworthy says those fears are unfounded.
There's a lot of misinformation out there about what's going on with Medicare and Social Security and Medicaid, on which President Trump has been clear and I've been clear. I don't support cuts to Medicaid, Social Security, or Medicare. Period. End of story.
The Republican representative has taken some heat of late for not holding more in-person town hall meetings in his 23rd congressional district. A crowd gathered over the weekend to watch a series of explosions to take down the defunct Homer City power plant in Indiana County, Pennsylvania.
A lot of my family members have worked there for years and years and years, and we're very dependent on the power plant for occupations and for industry.
I think it's a tragedy because we have so many natural resources under where we're standing right here.
The resident Adam Gallo told WJAC it was time to move on from the coal-powered plant.
A lot of their families had built what is here, so there's people that are upset about it, but to me it feels like it's going into the future.
Officials hope the 3,000-acre site can be redeveloped. Police in Pennsylvania's capital city are trying something new to curb violence. In the most dangerous neighborhoods, they're handing out Blink doorbell cameras for free, as well as porch lighting. Captain Russell Winder Jr. of the Harrisburg Police.
What the camera winds up doing is catching a lot of things that happen before the actual event. That information is vital.
Police went door to door and handed out more than 100 cameras and 400 porch lights. Next at 5, issues in education. Our own Bob Price sits down with Dr. Ralph Kerr of the Teaching and Learning Institute and asks him his thoughts on cell phones in schools, the state of education in Pennsylvania, and the end of the U.S. Department of Education. Let's listen in.
There's a lot of disagreement about banning cell phones in school. The governor's proposed a total ban. The Senate is saying that there should be limited use of cell phones, like between classes. And the Assembly, which I really support, says let's leave it to the local districts to decide, because, in fact, many of the districts already have policies in place.
The Pennsylvania School Boards Association last week issued its State of Education report, and for the third straight year, it listed mental health, budget pressures, and staffing shortages as the biggest challenges to education. The name of this program is Issues in Education. I want to ask you, Ralph, what do you think are the top 3 issues facing our public schools today?
Well, the mental health issue is part of what I would rank as a number one, and that, without question in my mind, is we need to improve the academic performance of our students. It's pathetic. It really is. So the number one should be academic.
Yeah.
And then I had allocation of resources, but that's different than money, because allocation means use the money that you already have and allocate it in a more appropriate way, not just always be asking for more money. And then we're going to talk about the impact of the Department of Education being dismantled. That's going to have tremendous impact in all of the states, and I would put that up as number 3.
Yeah, let's do a little bit of a deep dive on that one, Ralph, because that executive order was issued last Thursday by the president. It takes an act of Congress to make it official. Now, the president says things like Pell Grants and aid for special needs students, Title I funding, that's not going to be affected at all. But are there things that will get impacted even without congressional action here?
I think there are some impacts. The president can just move a lot of those functions to other departments and just retain the education department as sort of a shell of itself. In my mind, he's on the right track when president of the teachers union, Randy Weingarten, is so upset about this whole thing. And many people are saying that the reason they're upset is because it's just been a trough of money, which has gone not so much for individual teachers, which need to get more money in their salaries, but for a lot of other things that the union is really pressing. And I think that's why you see the teachers union all over this. They're really concerned about the impact this is going to have.
That's Dr. Ralph Kerr of the Teaching and Learning Institute. You can subscribe, listen to, and share Issues in Education and all of Family Life's original podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or at familylife.org. Time next for tonight's market report, brought to you by Faithward Advisors. Stocks are closing sharply higher to start the week on Wall Street. At the final bell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 597 points to 42,583. The S&P 500 rose 100 points to 57,67, and the Nasdaq climbed 404 points to 18,188. Faithward Advisors is a Christian financial planning firm online at faithwardadvisors.com.
Would you believe that Jesus taught more about money than he did about heaven and hell? Hi, I'm Rob West with today's Faith and Finance Minute. The only thing Jesus talked about more than money and possessions during his ministry on earth was the kingdom of heaven. Economist Jerry Boyer notes that Jesus also tailored his messages to the audience. For example, he never rebuked wealthy individuals in Galilee where folks created wealth through honest labor. But when Jesus entered Judea, where the corrupt ruling class lived, he confronted the rich young ruler, Zacchaeus the tax collector, and the money changers who all used power and fraud to gain wealth. The lesson is there's nothing wrong with attaining wealth honestly, but amassing it through theft and corruption dishonors God. Manage your finances wisely with the easy-to-use FaithFi app. Download FaithFi, Faith and Finance from your app store, or learn more at faithfi.com.
Coming up on the 5 o'clock report, how would you respond if you found out your son just made the New York Yankees? We've got one mama's reaction on tape after weather.
I'm Kevin Williams, and here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. In the wake of the breezy cold front across the area earlier, chilly air is in place and will be in place now for the rest of the work week. No big ticket items are foreseen during this time, but little nuisance patches of rain and snow showers can be expected. The call for tonight, a good deal of cloud cover, a couple of scattered evening rain showers, followed by some snow flurries, low temperatures upper 20s and 30s. Tomorrow and Wednesday, considerable cloudiness, brisk and chilly with a few rain and snow showers, except a mix of sun and clouds and mainly precipitation-free in central and eastern Pennsylvania. High temperatures, 40s for tomorrow, and mostly mid-30s to mid-40s on Wednesday.
Thank you, Kevin. Finally at 5, mother-son moment. The Yankees just signed a former Uber driver to their team. J.C. Escara found out he made the roster Saturday after an impressive performance in spring training, 3 home runs and 8 RBIs. In addition to Uber, he was also substitute teaching, did contract work, and volunteered at youth baseball coaching. The first person he called when he found out was his mom. Her reaction?
Yeah, Mom.
A real-life Cinderella story and a mama who rejoices beside her boy. And that's the world that we live in for Monday, the 24th of March. I'm Sarah Harnish, and this is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.